안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 오늘 날씨가 좀 흐리네요. 운동하고 지금 세탁기를 돌리고 있어요. 서울을 올라가서 오늘 1박 2일을 할 겁니다. 가기 전에 운동하고 가야지. 서울 집에 가면 운동할 데가 없어. 운동하겠습니다.
Say to black voters who think that their vote doesn't matter, that it won't change anything.
Well, the first thing I would say is that if your vote didn't matter, then people wouldn't be spending millions and millions of dollars trying to keep you from voting or trying to steal your votes. And, my mom used to say that anything you leave on the table, you leave for somebody else to eat. And that's exactly what we've seen over this last 4 years. And I will also be honest, in my book, I do talk about the failures of both parties to be able to address the concerns and needs of Black communities. I've been saying for a very long time that for too long, Black communities have been engaged symbolically, but not substantively. And that has consequences, not just for our democracy, but it also has consequences in relationship to the cynicism that people feel that government or politicians or elected officials in general really care about Black communities. And so the onus is really on us at this point. What I say to people who don't believe that elections matter is they absolutely do, but they're not the end-all be-all. Quite frankly, elections are an opportunity for us to demonstrate how many people we've won over to our side. It's an opportunity for us to display the organizing work that we have done. And it's also an opportunity for us to send up a flare to anybody who wants to represent us that they need to be worried about disappointing us as well. So if you want all of those things, it's important for you to vote. What I know about this election is it's going to have the highest turnout of any election in the history of this nation. And I also know that Black voters will be a critical part of that.
Well, the book is called The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart by Alicia Garza. Thank you both. I appreciate it. I hope we get to talk more soon. Be well.
Thank you so much, Don.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Climate change affects people all over the world. But what if all food packaging came from nature and didn't impact the climate? At Tetra Pak, we're on a journey towards delivering the world's most sustainable food package. Fully renewable, fully recyclable, carbon neutral. Go nature, go carton. Learn more at gonature.tetrapak.com.
이제 우리가 가까워질 시간. 서울에 온 걸 환영해요. 먼저 서울 스타일로 변신. 어때요? 서울의 이야기를 조용히 들어봐요. 이번엔 짜릿한 서울을 즐길 시간. 서울 맛집으로 내가 안내할게요. 많이 기다렸죠? 같이 보고 싶다. 여행이 시작되면 첫 번째 목적지는 서울이 되길 바래. I saw you.
This is a country steeped in history, traditions and adventure. This is India. Meet the mastermind behind one of India's top restaurants.
Every dish has a story to tell. There's a history behind every dish.
See a kayaking festival on the Ganges with a competitive edge. And learn how India's most famous tea master is encouraging a sustainable way of life. Spirit of India, Sunday on CNN.
I'm Wolf Blitzer.
Hey, Charles Barkley.
Dick Tapper here.
I'm fortunate to have a role in this world where
I get to use my voice.
Well, come November 3rd, every American
gets to use their voice.
to vote.
To vote.
To vote.
It requires no words at all.
But will be heard forever.
No matter where in the world you live.
Or how you do it.
Please.
Please, please, let your voice be heard.
Coronavirus is affecting an entire country, the world. Are we ready? In the
beginning of outbreaks like this, nobody knows what's happening. We're determined to keep reporting the story.
What does that mean? Because that seems to be what worries the American. Because we're ready for it.
These are the moments where our humanity really does shine through. That's the hardest part.
It's heart-wrenching.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN.
My name is Archana Soring. I belong to Khariya tribe, an indigenous community from Odisha, India. I'm a member of UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, and I'm also a researcher working on biodiversity and indigenous community. So this year, along with the COVID-19 pandemic, we still had cyclones here in my state. So the thing is, we need to accept that climate crisis is something which is happening now, and it is an emergency, because along with the health crisis which the entire globe is facing, we are also facing the climate crisis, which has made us more vulnerable in terms of our recovery efforts. So the thing is, for the indigenous communities, the nature and the forest is the one which is protecting us and which is providing us food and shelter. So in this COVID-19 era also, if we see, they were much more resilient. At least they had food for survival, which many of them did not have during this pandemic. So that is why I feel the sustainable way of living of indigenous community needs to be promoted, because the way of life is very sustainable and the food habit is very nutritional and also very ecosystem based.
Coronavirus. To get daily news updates in your inbox, sign up to the CNN newsletter. Coronavirus. Fact versus fiction.
Current and pro athletes using their voices and platforms to encourage Black Americans to vote in the 2020 election. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, sitting down with NBA stars to discuss the importance of the Black vote, saying, when we vote, things change. Let's bring in now Karan Butler, the former NBA star who is working with LeBron James on his More Than a Vote initiative. Karan, I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing. The way I see it is athletes in 2020 are taking their power and proving that they're not going to just shut up and dribble. So tell me about the work that you're doing.
Well, I think it's this amazing thing, because as collectives, we finally come together and maximize our platform to use it for the better good and to drive change. You know, me in particular, in the Racine, Kenosha area, we're providing a lot of just resources. When you think about the public transportation and the ballot boxes and the locations, it's far-fetched. It's kind of, far from, where those resources are. So what we're doing is providing, transportation through a Lyft program, and we're just giving them access while practicing social distancing to go to these respective locations and cast their ballot, because we know that voter suppression is real, particularly in the state of Wisconsin, and that was something that I identified, and I reached out to the campaign, and they've provided all the resources, and we're doing it, in multiple locations.
You're starting it tomorrow, right?
Yeah. It's very important that we get it done.
Yeah. So listen, I want to talk to you about the more in the More Than a Vote program. You said that the killing of George Floyd was a wake-up call, and you identified with the video. You watched it with your kids. What was that like?
I mean, it was terrifying. Watching that visual, I had to explain to my 16-year-old daughter, my 20-year-old son, and my kids, because we're completely authentic. We don't hide things from them. That, this is a reality for us. And, when you talk about that conversation, you got to dig deep, but you have to come from a truthful space and a place where they can just, recognize some of the problems that exist out here and, some of the things that we need to do going forward to drive change.
So it's More Than a Vote program. How can people find out where they can get help if they need to?
I mean, you follow us on our respective platforms, myself, LeBron, MoreThanAVote.com. We're giving, all the information in your respective states and cities on things that you need, when you go out to exercise your right to vote, whether it's the proper identification, billing address, all those things that you might get questioned and harassed with, you're following in those lines, doing your service.
Well, you're doing a service. I thank you, and I thank LeBron for what you're doing, and I hope to see you real soon. Come back and talk to us, okay? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate you, King.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Go vote. Coverage continues.
인간은 제일 먼저 의존하는 게 시각인데 시각이 차단된 상태에서 열화상 카메라를 사용함으로써 제3의 눈이 돼주는 거죠. 열화상 카메라는 크고 무겁습니다. 삼성전자에서 가벼워질 수 있게 만들었고 앞으로 소방 장비가 더 많이 개발이 되어서 이비니스 열화상 카메라처럼 더 많은 사람들을 구할 수 있는 그런 기술 개발이 더 많아졌으면 좋겠습니다.
After a chaotic first debate, a presidential health crisis, and a controversial cancellation, Biden and Trump face off one last time. The final presidential debate. Watch it live on CNN. Special coverage Friday.
This year, if you want to vote by mail, you can do so in 44 states. To ensure that everyone has a say in who becomes president of all 50.
Safe skies. The weather sponsored by Qatar Airways. Sponsored by Qatar Airways.
When you travel the world, make sure the world travels with you. Check in, log on, and get connected with all of the latest developments at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels, connected to your world.
London, and this is CNN.
Hello, Hello, welcome to our viewers joining us from around the world. I'm John Gores. Coming up on CNN Newsroom. Final stretch with millions of Americans already voting early. Trump and Biden are now rallying their base and trying to win over that rare and most elusive of all voter, the undecided. Manchester braces for a pandemic lockdown it did not want. Tough medicine from a Prime Minister whose new plan to control the second wave of the virus appears to be falling apart. Desperate times, desperate measures. The UK set to directly infect volunteers with COVID-19 to learn which potential vaccines work and which ones do not. The health risks and ethical questions surrounding human challenge trials later this hour. Since the very start of this campaign, the messages and actions coming from both Trump and Biden have been worlds apart. And so with 13 days now until the election, closing arguments from both candidates could not be more different. Donald Trump returned to the battleground state of Pennsylvania on Tuesday. During a nighttime rally, he warned the Biden administration would end fracking and kill the American dream. Earlier, he labeled Biden a criminal, urged an investigation by the Attorney General, but did not specify what should be investigated. The president also abruptly ended a White House interview with a respected journalist, falsely claiming she would not wear a mask. Joe Biden spent the day off the campaign trail, preparing for Thursday's final debate. His wife made a number of campaign stops in Michigan. Meanwhile, early voting is now underway in Wisconsin. The president won the swing state by less than 23,000 votes 4 years ago. In Pennsylvania, the president performed his greatest hits for his supporters, complaining about the media, Dr. Andrew Fauci, China, a whole lot of other stuff. Aides say not exactly the message they were hoping for in the campaign home stretch. Here's CNN's Caitlin Collins.
As the president was rallying his supporters in Pennsylvania on Tuesday night with 2 weeks to go before the election, he at one point seemed to recognize the dire position he's in when it comes to political polling, because he said that if it had been before the pandemic, he likely wouldn't have even been in Erie, Pennsylvania, but basically told the crowd he had to show up given that his poll numbers right now are behind those of Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, a state that he carried in 2016. That rally came just a few hours after the president had sat down with CBS's Leslie Stahl at the White House for an interview for 60 Minutes, at which we are told the president abruptly ended the interview before it was scheduled to be done after about 45 minutes because he grew frustrated with the line of questioning from Stahl, and we're told he left the room and did not come back to do what was supposed to be a taped portion of the interview with the Vice President, Mike Pence. And of course, then you saw the president go on Twitter. He taunted Leslie Stahl for at one point during the briefing or during the interview not wearing a mask, and then he threatened to release the interview before CBS News airs it next Sunday. Of course, whether or not he ultimately does still remains to be seen, but what you're seeing with these 2 weeks to go before the election is the president is making his closing message attacks on reporters like CBS News, attacks on other reporters as well, including the debate moderator for Thursday night for that final presidential debate, but also on Dr. Anthony Fauci, someone he has repeatedly gone after in recent days. And this is not exactly the closing political message that aides had hoped he would have, given the fact that he is trailing Joe Biden in so many states with so few days left to go. Caitlin Collins, CNN, traveling with the president in Pennsylvania.
And joining me now from Oakland, California, Tim Miller, the political director for Republican Voters Against Trump, host of the Not My Party on Snapchat. Tim, we've got a lot to get to. Great to have you with us. I want to start with a little more from that Trump campaign rally, the likely super spreader event in Erie, Pennsylvania. Listen to this.
He will massively raise your taxes, bury you in regulations, dismantle your police departments, dissolve our borders, confiscate your guns, Second Amendment. Oh, you're so lucky I'm president, you wouldn't have a Second Amendment. Eliminate private health care, terminate religious liberty, destroy the suburbs.
In case you didn't pick it up, he's talking about Joe Biden, the Antichrist, who says, none of that is actually true. Does it look to you like Trump kind of knows that the reality TV presidency will not be renewed for a second season, and he's now moving on to this new role of Trump TV, a aggrieved old white man giving voice to aggrieved old white men across the US?
Well, don't jinx it, John. I don't know. I can't get inside his head. I'll tell you this. This is a person that was told last time by the top people at his campaign that he was going to lose. On election day, he thought he was going to lose in 2016. They told him that he needed to stop tweeting. They told him he needed to behave better. They told him he needed to soften himself, and he didn't listen to him last time. He won anyway. And so I think that when you have that kind of experience, you're a narcissist like this president, it's hard to tell him to do anything other than what comes out of his natural id, which is that and all the other kind of weird grotesqueries and sidebars that he had today in Erie. And I think that is putting a ceiling on his as we head down the final stretch.
딱
I
20분이네.
don't think that what you're saying is somebody that's just given up.
20분?
Okay, it's interesting because
물 좀 먹겠습니다.
we've seen sort of the craziness come out. You know, sort of Mad King George feel. You know, Trump's been dancing on the stage to the village people, and you know those in North Carolina. Then you know he launches into the all familiar attacks with the usual targets. Offers the same old excuses. Listen to this.
You turn on CNN, that's all they cover. COVID, pandemic, COVID. You know why? They're trying to talk everybody out of voting. People aren't buying at CNN, you dumb bastards. We had this thing won. We were so far up, we had the greatest economy ever, greatest jobs, greatest everything. And then we got hit with the plague.
Okay, so if you're saying he's still in the game, what's the strategy here? Can you explain?
I don't think that this is a 4D chess move that he's making. I think this is just Trump emoting, Trump lashing out at the people who've been mean to him, lashing out at his enemies, and hoping that it works again. I think it's as simple as that. I don't think there's a lot of deep thinking involved. But you know, one of the reasons I think that this is different in 2016 is what he's talking about with the virus. He's very out of step with even some of his own voters about whether or not to take this seriously. And you know, we here at Republican Voters Against Trump in our focus groups, which we only talk to people who voted for Trump last time that are on the fence now, they say that they thought that they were going to get a businessman who was going to get stuff done and cut deals, and they see him out here amidst this massive crisis, not even trying to do anything for them, actually making fun of the idea that he should do something. And a lot of them are disillusioned by that, and I think that's why you see his poll numbers down from where they were in March and from where they were last time when he won.
Yeah, the Lincoln Project is another group of former Republicans, and they produced some devastating anti-Trump campaign ads. Here's part of one.
It's simple. To save Americans, we must change presidents. On November 3rd, vote like your life depends on it.
Dr. Ricardo Castaneda, Ronald Lewis, Daniel and Valerie Zane, Violet A.
So we go from that deadly serious, essentially, to ridicule. Again, another campaign ad for the Lincoln Group. Here it is.
Don't cry for me, White House staffers. The truth is, I will infect you. All through my tweeting, my mad existence. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance.
It's a great ad, but despite millions of dollars which have been spent trying to convince Republicans not to vote for Trump, in Erie, Pennsylvania, just a few hours ago, they were still chanting this.
If they did a good job, I wouldn't have run. Thank you.
We love you, we love you. You know, regardless of what happens in the next couple of weeks, is this the end of the GOP? Does it survive as a cult if the cult leader is no longer there at some point?
Yeah, well, first on Lincoln Project, what we're doing at RVAD, and we work together, I don't think either of us are trying to get the number down to 0 supporters for Trump. We recognize that he has a very rabid fan base, but I think that there's a lack of appreciation for the fact that last time, 15%, that was unprecedented in American modern polling, of his own voters said that they had an unfavorable view of him. So there actually, it was quite a big swath of swing voters that are gettable, which I don't think there's an appreciation for a lot of times in the media and among other pundits. And so that's who we're talking to. As far as the future of the GOP is concerned, I wrote about this for Rolling Stone last week, and I don't think that the party's dead. I think the party's Trumpist. And look, because of the American system, you know, the Republican Party could thrive as a minority party, just doing well in the whitest states, the most rural states in the Midwest and the South and across the Mountain West. And the party could still have 48, 50 senators by just focusing on those voters. So I think that is the future of the party. It's not something I see, you know, the Lincoln Project types or us kind of going back to. But I don't think it's going to just magically go away either because of the way our system works.
Yeah, it's not exactly where many thought the party would be at this point in time, but it's a good point to finish up on, Tim. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Take care. Well, military leaders in the US usually stay out of
마지막으로
politics, but the retired
스코트
admiral
먼저
who saw the
하겠습니다.
Navy SEAL
스코트 하고
raid,
발굽
who's
평평하고
killed
끝낼게요.
Osama bin Laden, is endorsing
못하겠어.
Joe Biden. William McRaven says he's a strong conservative, but the country is heading in such a bad direction under Trump, it needs new leadership.
The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump has been dismissive. You saw very early on in his presidency how he treated the NATO members. Now, I got it. Has NATO been living up to its 2% of GDP to support the NATO alliance? No, but there are better ways to handle it. And you don't disrespect some of our colleagues and our allies that have been around with us for 75 years. That's not the way to strengthen the alliance. That's not the way to push back against Russia. You look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Here was an opportunity to bring in 40% of the GDP in terms of our allies to be able to leverage that against China, and Trump elected not to do that. So yes, what I know will happen under Biden is that he will be respectful of our allies, he will build those alliances, he will strengthen those coalitions, and that's exactly what we're going to need going forward.
Now to the latest on the coronavirus, and infections in the US are soaring at levels not seen in months.